Hi, my name is Andrew Guardiola, and I did my research topic on how the Italian Mafia affected cinema. Why I chose this topic. I've always been obsessed with mobster movies such as Goodfellas, The Godfather, Donnie Brasco, and the hit series Sopranos. I was fascinated in how they would live their lives at such an incredibly fast pace and how they would have the nicest cars, clothing, houses, jewelry, and how they lived their lives by this Machiavelli code, the end justifies the means. They had complete disregard for the law. If they clearly wanted something, they would just take it, by the means of lying, stealing, assault, and even murder. It was engaging for me to how the media glamorized these criminals for living affluent lives. But as we learned in class, this wasn't the case for the actual mob. As we saw Rosario Costa, after the Palermo bombings, plead for the government and the mafia to stop this violence and terrorizing the Italian civilians. It was extremely catching to my eyes after seeing her distress on her face and how much she just wanted the violence to end it all. And you could really see in the distress in her eyes and the crying how this was a major problem in Italy. So first we're going to say, what is the Mafia? The Mafia is a network of organized crime groups based in Italy and America, evolved over centuries in Sicily, an island ruled under mid-19th century by a long line of foreign invaders. Sicilians band together in groups to protect themselves and carry out their own justice. In Sicily, the term mafioso initially had no criminal connections at all, and was used to refer to a person who was suspicious of central authority. By the 19th century, some of these groups emerged as private armies or mafii who extorted protection money from landowners and eventually became the violent criminal organization known today as the Sicilian Mafia. So now we're going to talk about the film industry and American culture domination in Italy. Even more than political and military circles, America has come to be a dominating force on the Italian culture, especially through film. American film had a strong influence in Italian. Matter of fact, by 1925, 4/5 of the market was held by American films due to the powerhouse Hollywood was. It was cheaper at the time for Italy to import American films because once a film was made in America, it would make its production money back on the opening day, thus making it extremely cheap for distributors and exhibitors abroad. But after 1945, after the war, the movement known as neorealism attempted to redefine the function of Italian cinema. It offered a different sort of engagement with reality. Neorealism emphasized poverty, unemployment, literacy, the legacy of fascist neglect, and difficulties of post-war reconstruction. The same subjects that created the Mafia. The Godfather Effect was written by Thomas Santopietro. The book demonstrates how the movie The Godfather was a turning point in American culture. With its emphasis on proud ethnicity, The Godfather not only changed the way Italian Americans saw themselves, but how Americans of all backgrounds viewed their individual and national self-identities. The Godfather changed Hollywood because it finally changed the way Italians were depicted on film. It made Italians seem like more fully realized people and not just stereotypes. It was a film in Hollywood made by Italians about Italians, which was the first ever to be done. It helped Italianize American culture. After watching one of Francis Capicola's film, you can't resist yourself quoting a line from the movie saying, "I can make an offer that they can't refuse." The Godfather helps squashing stereotypes. Italian Americans are very sensitive about their image in movies because it has traditionally been so negative. As either a mobster or a simple-minded peasant who talk like this, as an Italian American, you can't stand these stereotypes but yet love these films so much. It goes to show how these mobsters commit such heinous criminal acts but justify their actions through the love and compassion of family and friends. It also shows how Italians weren't all uneducated and that they all didn't speak with such heavy accents. For example, Michael Corleone is a gangster in the film The Godfather, but you see him as the one who went to college to pursue an education to make themselves a part of the new world, to assimilate themselves in American culture. And even a study was shown that the Italian American Civil Rights League organized protests because it felt that the film would only reinforce the Italian equal mobster stereotype. And to some extent, of course, it did. As you cite in the books, the Italic Institution of American realized a report based on FBI statistics in 2009 stating that only 0.00782% of Italian Americans possessed any criminal association, and yet according to a national Zogby poll, 74% of American public believe that Italian Americans have ties to the mob. Actually, the funny thing is that the Italian American Civil Rights organization was run by a Gambino mob boss who pushed for the film not to be released because it gave that negative stigma to Italians. But they actually struck a deal with the director of The Godfather that the film can be released only if they don't use the word mafia. And actually, the word mafia was only used once during the film. And actually, this was the fall for Gambino because he was actually murdered because of his loud talking and his presence in the media. So my conclusion comes straight from the text that was issued for this course. And the text says, poverty does not by itself create a sufficient or even necessary push to go elsewhere, but if poverty is combined with personal goals and expectations that are considered unattainable at home, and if a place exists where such hopes appear to have a great chance of realization, the desire to emigrate may become irresistible. I believe that is the MO for every immigrant that came to America to chase the American dream. I believe that Italian immigrants were the poster boys for American immigration, since they were one of the first to arrive to the new land and were extremely easy to pick on due to the way they dressed, the way they talked with their hands, using a ton of vowels, and the way they ate certain foods. But the mafia movies actually helped assimilate Italians in the American culture. As best said by film historian Robert Warshaw, he argues that gangster films represent an American form of tragedy pivoting on capitalism's dark underbelly. Warshaw's formula for all gangster films typically involves a poor immigrant so desperate for the American dream with money, position, flashy clothes, nice cars, women, that they fall prey to a life of crime. Filmmakers actually weren't there to promote crime or glamorize it, but to scratch a deeper layer to show that extent of Italian Americans and how far they would go to achieve a better life for their family. That's why Coppola's film The Godfather illustrates the best combining Italian and American film ideologies by adopting Italian neorealism by using actual gangsters in his film, and the movie was released towards the end of the Vietnam War, where America was having difficulties of post-war reconstruction with the likes of veterans coming home from the war and not getting any support from the American civilians. That's why I believe that Coppola's film The Godfather is actually today one of modern day's best epics. As you could see why the Mafia had such an impact on today's modern day cinema. And these are my academic sources that I've used for cross-referencing.